All right, everybody, we are joined with Sulaiman Ahmed. This is a very anticipated interview. This is going to be a banger. Going to get into a lot of deep topics with the brother. So, Sulaiman, I guess I'll get you started by introducing yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And yeah, give us a brief story.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously my name is Sulaiman Ahmed. I'm quite big on X. I partake in a significant number of issues, mainly Twitter journalism. Although I do investigate, do investigations. I do tweets about various issues, but political, whether they're based on my political opinion. I've grown quite big on Twitter over a short period of time. I started Twitter in 2023, and I've amassed 600,000 plus followers on X, which is quite hard to do. I hold probably the biggest / second biggest, depending on what the topic is, Twitter Spaces on X as well, where you partake in political opinion and discourse. So I'm very much like from the political sphere, philosophy, religion, and various other topics and issues. Furthermore, my background is actually academic. Most people don't know that, but I have a degree in law, conversion to mathematics, master's in philosophy, was doing my PhD in philosophy when I basically blew up on Twitter. And then obviously, you know how Twitter takes over. I did start a YouTube show, but I kind of put it on delay for this year because I was just focused on a few other things. But hopefully, I'll start that again towards the back end of the year.
And I saw on Twitter they took away your blue check mark because you were doing crazy numbers, man. Like I remember you would get like hundreds of thousands of views per tweet. And then I remember seeing you say that they took away your blue check mark. And then like your engagement, it's almost like they just like tanked your engagement. Why do you think that is, that they took away your engagement like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the engagement is down. It's still good though. Like compared to most other accounts, is really good. But yeah, compared to what it was in the past, obviously, I think at one point over the last year, I was like, is the top 5 most engaged accounts on the whole of X for like a good 3 to 6 months. The reason was basically, I believe, is because of my position on Israel Palestine. Obviously, I'm against the Israeli genocide of Gaza, and what basically happened at that specific point was I've obviously held that opinion for 15 months, but I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the H-1B visa issue. So what that was is this idea that basically in America you import a significant number of foreign workers into the United States of America, H-1B being largely used by Indians. And so what was happening was they were importing a significant number of Indian workers into the United States of America, which harms the American worker. Because think about it, if you bring in, and this is a left-wing position. I know now it's also a right-wing position, ironically, but it was classically a left-wing position because the idea was that you basically just think about it, you're going to pay an American worker $10 an hour. But then if I bring 10 Indians in who are willing to do it for $2 an hour, then you're going to not pay the American worker $10 an hour. You're going to end up paying him $5 an hour or $2 an hour. And therefore, you're decreasing the wage of the working class, the poor people. And so I'm always a supporter of people who are from like a socially, economically deprived background. And so obviously I spoke out against the H-1B visa because it is importing a significant number of Indians into the United States of America. And if you look at the United States, the vast majority of legal immigration into the United States is Mexico, India second. And India is actually the biggest importer of immigration into the UK, Australia, Canada, basically any of the Western countries. So I spoke out against that. And I think that culminating in obviously my position on Palestine meant that Elon Musk, obviously, because he was pro H-1B visas, basically removed my checkmark and demonetized me. Now, Laura Loomer was part of that demonetization, but she's a Zionist. She's pro-Israeli, but she got it back. So only the non-pro-Israeli accounts did not get it back. So it is very much based on your political opinion. And what the concern there is that in X, you basically have to have a specific political opinion to be monetized and to be boosted, which is basically then becomes more of a people shilling opinions or basically propaganda experts as opposed to really holding political opinion.
Yeah, free speech unless you're talking about Israel, right? And then it's you get your check mark taken away, you get demonetized, and your engagement gets turned down to like low. Brutal.
100%. And not just that, if you look at the United States of America now, and that was what the space I was on, what you're mentioning, that it is a massive attack on free speech. Students are being censored, students are being expelled, students are being deported solely for holding the political opinion that they're against the genocide in Gaza. So yeah, it is free speech unless you basically are against the state of Israel or for the Palestinians. Did you send me the?
Yeah, so I just made a tweet. I tagged you in it with the link.
Oh, okay. I was looking at
you could either, if you want, retweet that, or you can make your own tweet just like with the link. I think that would probably do better engagement wise than a retweet, but I'll give you a second to do that. We'll read some of the comments. Somebody says, "Oh my god, I love Sulaiman Ahmed's X page. I love his stance on so many things." Let's go.
What a G!
Let's go. We got some G's in here. So yeah, I'll give you a minute to do that. Let me know when you're ready. But we're gonna dive into a lot here, man. And I just want to remind you, I'm on YouTube, so please like dive into these topics, but don't get me banned because I know it's some sensitive stuff. So some very sensitive stuff. Let's see.
What's your tag again?
My tag? Tyson Hockley. I don't even think you follow me yet.
Well, I might give you the privilege to do that if you do a good job in this interview. I only follow about 300-400 people on Twitter.
Yeah, fair enough, man.
I don't think that's you. 1 second. Let me just go to check. Let me check on here. What's your tag? No, it's Hockley. It's the other way around. Do you think it's Hockley first?
Okay, I think if you type in Tyson Hockley, it still comes up though. Either way.
Okay, found it.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So, never mind. It's so funny.
Right, done.
All right, perfect. Appreciate it, man. So, without getting me banned on YouTube, can you please go into like Israel, Palestine, and kind of break that down a little bit more? Because that's something that is so, I feel like, overlooked and so just like banned. Like, it's such a banned subject, especially if you take the position of Palestine. There's been professional athletes tweeting out free Palestine, and they're getting calls 10 minutes later from their management saying, take this down. It's such a banned topic. So, maybe go into that without like going too far.
Yeah, sure. So, when you look at the Israel-Palestine situation, obviously it culminated in October the 7th, where it was a military exercise by Hamas to basically get Israeli prisoners and to trade them for, so Israeli soldiers to trade them for Palestinian prisoners. Obviously, some things went wrong. Israel killed a lot of their own people. They weren't expecting a lot of things to happen, which they did happen. For example, there was a festival there, which they didn't expect to be there. There was also... and then they didn't expect Israel to basically mass use the Hannibal Directive, which is that they kill their own people in order to ensure that they did not taken as prisoners. And so after that, you saw 15 months of the complete attack of Palestine, the genociding of civilians, men, women, and children in a significant and ferocious manner, and extreme censorship, as per what we mentioned earlier. And what you saw was Israel basically do that to the Palestinians. They've killed, according to the Gaza ministry, almost 50,000. I believe it's more close to 300,000. According to Trump, it could be close, because Trump said there's 1.5 million people left in Gaza. There was 2.3 million first. So that means almost 700,000 people have gone missing. So you're looking at a lot of life that's been lost. There was a ceasefire. And then just yesterday, Israel broke the ceasefire and restarted the genocide in Gaza. Hundreds of people were killed yesterday, mainly women and children. So yeah, it's one of the most horrific things we've seen in our lifetime, and it's a highly problematic issue in terms of, if you're for peace, if you're for equality, if you're for human life, then what we're witnessing is probably one of the worst things we've witnessed in our history and in our lifetime.
Absolutely. So why do you think the president of the United States, Donald Trump, is so pro-Israel when they're killing this many Palestinians?
Well, this is the interesting thing, right? Because obviously we blamed Biden and Harris for being supporters of genocide. And so therefore what we did was we said, look, they support genocide, basically, and they're complicit in it. And they need to pay for the fact that they are complicit in the genocide that they partaked in. And so this is the reason many people were. And Trump promised the Arabs and the Muslims in Michigan that they would basically he would cause a ceasefire. He would make sure that the genocide doesn't continue. And the swing state of Michigan went his way largely because of this claim. But what you also saw was before October the 7th, there was obviously Trump in the first administration didn't have a great legacy. He also had 4 legal cases against him, 4 criminal cases against him, because obviously he lost the civil case. And the 2 of them were state cases and 2 were federal cases. One of the cases he'd been found guilty of. And he was going to get sentences from it. As soon as he had that assassination attempt, all the big tech bros, all the people from Silicon Valley, all the technocrats, and all the Zionists switched positions. They were basically Democrats, and they all switched to the right. They all switched to Trump. And what happened was when they switched to Trump, they basically dictated his policy and positions, because basically Miriam Adelson gave, who is a pro-Israel person, Jewish Zionist, gave him 100 million. Elon Musk gave him hundreds of millions. Bill Ackman, David Sachs, all these guys that were supporting him. And then his cases got dropped as well. So I believe that there is a high likelihood, and his cases got dropped. And the one case that he was found guilty of, he got nothing for it. He got no sentence for it, no nothing. Wow. So I believe that there's high likelihood that he made a deal to basically ensure that he becomes president of the United States. And part of that deal was that he would support Israel. He gave them 12 billion since he's been elected. Americans are suffering, and yet he's supporting Israel. And also on top of that, you basically got a scenario where you saw the direct attack in the United States of America on the First Amendment, attacking college students who are protesting, who are using the American Western right to protest, and he's basically targeted them. You know what's interesting is, sorry, I'm blagging on a bit, but you know what's interesting is they always used to say about Muslims that they're unable to assimilate, that they're unable to basically be part of Western civilizations. But I say, no, look, we've assimilated. We're part of Western civilization. We're talking about philosophy, politics, religion, whatever it may be. We believe in the First Amendment, the right to speak, the right for free speech. But actually, it's the Israelis, it's the Zionists who cannot assimilate, because they're not able to basically assimilate into this Western idea of free speech. So instead, what they do is they partake in extreme censorship. They cause America to basically bend the Constitution. They cause America to basically do a direct attack on free speech. And that's what you're seeing in the United States in terms of the attack on Columbia University against students who are just using the American right of protesting.
Yeah, so do you think that that's the number one reason why Donald Trump got elected, is because he took some deal with like Israel to support Israel?
Look, this is a controversial take. People are going to cry. I do not think any election anywhere in the world is real. I think all of it is fake. And so if you accept that there's no real election, then of course, just like Biden was given the election, I think Trump was given the election.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how deep this entire thing goes. And without going like too far on YouTube, like they do control a lot of mainstream media, a lot of the narrative. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they had something to do with Trump getting elected.
They control the mainstream media. They control social media.
Yeah.
X is probably the only free speech platform. And even then, we've just discussed what happened to me, right? So the most free speech platform is still controlled by them. The government is controlled by them through finances, through influence, through blackmail rings such as Jeffrey Epstein. We're waiting for the Epstein files to come out. They're likely not going to come out. So yeah, this is a worldwide operation that ensures that Trump won.
So what do you think could be done to like beat this worldwide operation? Like, how can we combat this? It seems like they have so much power. It almost seems like it's like a hopeless battle, like if they control everything. So what do you think could be done?
I mean, it's a really good question. It does feel hopeless sometimes. You do think sometimes that, look, they're dominating, which they are. They're able to cause strife amongst Muslims. They're able to cause strife amongst Muslims and Christians. They're able to do a lot of these things. So they are dominating in a significant manner. But I really believe that one man can make a difference, and many men can make a huge amount of difference. And that's the reason we continue doing this. That's the reason why we continue to speak out against the Israeli oppression, even though it harms you from your job perspectives, from your financial perspective, from your networking perspective. In all aspects, it harms you. But if you're willing to sacrifice everything, then you're able to basically break free. You know, this whole idea of the matrix, you might have heard of it, right? But real matrix, or the real matrix, it's not the matrix of like, it's the matrix of the mind.
Mm.
And what that means is this: that can't be broken by wealth, because a wealthy man always fears that many wealthy men I know, and they always fear that they're going to lose their wealth, and therefore they don't speak the truth. They don't fight against those who oppress. They don't fight against those in power. And so the real mentality of a real alpha, or a real person who can break free, is someone who does not have any fear. You're willing to lose everything for the truth. You're willing to lose everything in order to basically fight against those in power. And I think that's what real power is. And there's only a few people who are able to do that. You saw Elon Musk, the most richest man in the world. As soon as they made him go to the Auschwitz tour, as soon as they took away his advertisers, he bent the knee. And so in reality, money, wealth does not give you true freedom of the mind. It's literally your own mentality. Are you strong enough, strong-willed enough? Do you have an alpha mentality to do so? And now, don't get me wrong, money is important, because once you have money, you have that financial freedom to not even worry about making money day in, day out. But it doesn't give you that freedom.
I mean, if even Elon Musk is bending a knee, it's kind of like scary to see what will the average person do. If like the most richest person is going to bend the knee to Israel, then who is Joe down the street? What's he going to do? He has no choice but to bend the knee. So I don't know. I feel like you kind of have to set yourself up and like build your castle in your own way, build the money, but also don't be afraid to lose it, because money is money. Use the money for influence, but don't like hoard the money and be scared to lose the money. You have to have a backbone in society. 100%. And you mentioned the Matrix, and that's kind of Andrew Tate's kind of saying. What do you make of this whole thing with Andrew Tate? Because I know he spoke out against. He said free Palestine, and when he said free Palestine, they throw him in a Romanian dungeon. Like, what do you think about that whole situation?
So that's how, I don't know if you know my history, but initially that's how I became big on Twitter.
Really?
Yeah. So what happened was, in 2023, they got, well, late 2022, early 2023, they got arrested. And if you look at the vast majority of social media, they were against them. They thought that they were obviously guilty, and it was just the prevailing narrative. And I thought, look, my rule always in life is, if the whole masses are having a point, likely they're going to be misguided, right? And therefore the truth's going to be on the other side. And so I've always kind of held that policy to look into things when all the masses are saying something, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, whether it's COVID, whether it's Brexit in the UK, or whatever it may be, Israel, Palestine, wherever it may be. And so I looked into it, and I thought, look, these allegations are quite weak. And so based on that, I started doing a number of threads, and I started blowing up. And then I went on Twitter Spaces. I blew up, and that's actually how I blew up. I blew up really fast on Twitter, because I was basically one of the few people who was providing the other perspective from a journalistic perspective. And then because of that, because I was the only one doing it from that unique perspective, that's what basically blew me up initially. I then obviously was talking about other political issues, whether it's because I'm a conservative in terms of from a social perspective. Economically, obviously, I'm a bit more liberal, not liberal, left wing, because I do believe in helping the poor out. And so for that reason, obviously, I became quite big. And so, yeah, there is, and obviously, Andrew Tate needs to be given a lot of credit in that regard, because supporting Palestine does harm you. There's hardly any benefit to supporting Palestine. You basically are censored, you're attacked. And if you look at when he went to the United States in Florida, do you think they would have attacked him if he wasn't pro-Palestine, or if he didn't speak out against Israel? They never would have. DeSantis is very much controlled by the Israeli lobby. He was basically financed by them. DeSantis is basically one of the biggest examples of a politician who can be paid for. And so he'll change his opinion based on whoever gives him the money. And so the Zionist Israelis gave him a significant amount of money, and hence why when they basically went to America, he basically said, we're going to arrest him. And that is solely based on that position. If he wasn't pro-Palestine, he wouldn't have had them issues. I mean, look at Donald Trump's lost a civil case based on allegations of rape, even though I think the allegations were weak. Eugene Carroll, but no issues happened to him. No problems with him in the United States of America. And so what that tells you is what makes Tate unique in that situation, or uniquely attacked in that situation, was this reason.
So what do you make of the whole case? Like, do you think it's weak? Do you think it's a matrix attack? Obviously, like, people know where I stand on this. I'm very pro Tate. I'm very free Tate. I think the entire thing's BS. But like, what's kind of like your breakdown, like looking at it? Because I'm sure you've probably looked into it even more than I have. So what do you make of the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, I looked into it significantly for the first like 7 or 8 months, and I do believe that allegations are extremely weak, don't have merit. The two women are the main people complaining. There's weak. But anyway, the whole thing is just weak evidence, and so I think that there is issues in that regard. And if you look at, for example, DCOT, I believe the case was thrown back to rechange or to, realign or whatever it may be. And the fact that the bigger issue is this as well. So I do think the case is weak, but also the fact that their freedom was taken away from them for 4 months without ever being found guilty. The fact that they were on house arrest for 2.5 years or 2 years or whatever it is, without ever being found guilty, without ever going in trial, is one of the most significant issues, because it basically means that someone is being punished before ever being found guilty. And I think that's highly problematic. I spoke about it out against it when it happened to Tate. I spoke out against it when it happened to Guantanamo Bay. I spoke out against it when it was happening to Jan 6 prisoners. And so it's a very important, and it happened to a lot of Muslims in the United Kingdom based on the Terrorism Act, which was basically you could arrest people for up to 28 days. Initially, it was longer, without any evidence or without access to lawyers. So even that aspect of it is highly problematic.
Yeah, he even says that too, right? The process is the punishment. So even if you're not guilty, they'll ruin your reputation, drag you through the mud with slanderous stuff, take away your freedom, and then just say that, throw it all out in the end, like they're seeming to do here. They just try to tarnish you with the whole process. It's absolutely bullcrap. And even if it does get thrown out, which I do believe it will, the damage to a large degree has been done. They've still taken years from the Tates that they could have been doing this whole USA tour like years ago. The fact that they're just now able to go to the States after like 2 years of house arrest is brutal. So the process is a punishment. I think it's absolutely bullcrap.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be able to come to the United Kingdom because they'll likely be arrested. And so therefore, this is what I mean. There is issues when it comes to free speech. Again, there is issues in terms of targeting people based on their political opinion. And I think it's highly problematic.
100%. What do you think is the biggest problem like that the world is facing? Do you think it is Israel and their influence?
I mean, this is like a slam dunk, right? I think the biggest problem the world is facing is definitely the Israeli control of the world. Because look, I'm not one of these people who attack Jewish people, right? I've got friends who are Jewish and they're anti-Zionist. Huge amount of love and respect for them, right? But let's be clear on this. They had a big beef with Christians for a very long time. They were thrown out of 109 Christian countries over 1,000 times. Their beef has always been with Christians for our history. And then the Holocaust happened, right? And the Holocaust, I do believe that they were oppressed in it. Obviously, people debate about the numbers. I think it's debating about the numbers is just an irrelevant issue, because in reality, people were oppressed, irrespective of the numbers. And this is the same point about Gaza. People are being murdered. So when Israelis are like, oh, actually, it's only 50,000 when we say it's 300, 400,000, they're basically doing the very same thing that people do to them, and then they complain about it. But coming back to the point, so when that happened to them, they basically thought, never again. Never again. So we don't want this to happen ever again. And so they thought, like, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? And again, that's a fair thing. Like, you get bullied, in their view, in their mind, they got bullied. How do I make sure that it doesn't happen again? And so what they did was they made sure that they dominated. They made sure they controlled. But what their domination and control did was it led to oppression. So what they did was they attacked black people, they attacked white people, and they attacked Muslims. They were the three people because they thought those are the three people who can do this again to us. Well, with the Christians, they do it again to those, and with the other two, is a possibility that they could do it to us as well. And so what they did was they attacked black culture in the United States. So they did this through housing policies to basically encourage single parent families. They did it through governmental policies. They did it through the educational system. They basically they did it through rap, Hollywood, music, and these other issues. And so they destroyed the black household, the black family. And if you look at it now, it's almost become like the entire culture in the United States in terms of the black population has been severely harmed by them. And they've destroyed it to the point where they're not really even a threat anymore. They did this with Muslims. They did this with Muslims. With the Muslims, they did it physically. So they knew ideologically Muslims are not easy to control and manipulate because they believe in Muslim values, Muslim thought, Muslim processes, right? You're not going to make a Muslim go away from his ideas and values and thoughts. And so the way they dealt with Muslims is they just bombed them to smithereens. So if you look at the Middle East, they bombed them to the Stone Age, they murdered them, they killed them, they made sure that they don't ever come to any form of ability or power of any kind of nation that could ever be a threat. And then the white people, they attacked them through liberalism, feminism, left-wing ideologies, infiltrated them, destroyed the family structure, made sure they weren't having children, making sure they weren't having families, made them take away from a religion. If you look at the UK, it used to be a Christian country with 75% Christian just 10 years ago. Now it's Christians that are a minority in the country, 40% and all of them, have they become Muslim? No, they haven't. This is fake news. They all became atheists. And so what they've done is take religion away from them. And so when you've basically got this targeted attack on Christians, they've destroyed Christianity now. Population collapse. Christians are not even replacing their own peer brethren fast enough. Never mind the fact that there's a huge loss of religion in a number of countries, especially in Europe. So they went after Christians and destroyed them. They went after Muslims and destroyed them. They went after blacks and destroyed them. And this is the problem with Zionism. It is a major issue because it oppresses anybody who disagrees with them.
Holy smokes, that was fire right there. Do you think that Israel like influences a lot of the degenerate rap music too? Because you said like a lot of kind of that culture, degenerate culture. Do you think that they push degeneracy?
Look at who are all the producers in Sony, in all of these music industries? They're all Jewish Zionists. They intentionally influenced black culture through rap, through music, to basically make them into this hooligan, gang-like, thug-like behavior. Black people generally historically were religious, especially before the civil rights. They were very much Christian. They believed in the family structure. This was a direct attack against them. And they succeeded. They succeeded against the black population. They succeeded against the white population. And they succeeded against Muslims.
Wow, that's crazy. And how do they do this? Like, how do they go in and, I guess, push degeneracy on every single culture? Like, are they really that deep rooted?
Well, they're doing it in a different way with every culture. So with the black culture, obviously, they did it by taking control over the Hollywood industry through the music industry. And so what happens is you put your people in positions of power. So Hollywood was always largely Jewish anyway, mainly Jewish Zionists, but not completely. And so you basically had more and more control over it over time. In addition to that, you basically had them get into positions of power in the government. And so to be in positions of power government, you had to be pro-Israeli. If you even gave an indication that you weren't, such a JFK, and we're all waiting for the JFK files to be released today, they have not been released, and we do think that they'll redact the Israeli involvement, but JFK was killed. Richard Nixon was impeached, or was about to be impeached. And so in reality, they control the politicians. They put in the United Kingdom, there was a guy called Jeremy Corbyn who was going to win the election. He was left-wing. He was anti-Zionist. He was going to win. He was going to be the prime minister of the UK. They made false allegations of anti-Semitism through the media, because they control the media as well. And they basically made sure that he didn't win. And Keir Starmer was their pick, was a Zionist pick, and he was put in position of power. So they control it from multi-layers. There's the government, there's the media, there's social media now, there's the mainstream media, there's educational system through the universities. They do it through a wide range of aspects, but that's how they're able to do it.
Man, you're blowing my mind here, bro. I'm not gonna lie. And also, I'm pretty sure the person that owns Pornhub is a rabbi. Just throwing that out there. I'm pretty sure that's true.
I mean, if you look at a lot of the degeneracy that's basically being perpetuated, yeah, it is by the Jewish Zionists. And yeah, Pornhub, I believe, is like he's not the owner, but he's got a high position. But OnlyFans, he's not only a Jewish Zionist, he significantly funds the state of Israel. And so of course that they basically, you look at the degeneracy that's going on is huge. Feminism is a Israeli concept. Liberalism is an Israeli concept. Transgenderism is an Israeli concept. So all of this whole idea of destroying the West has come from them, and they did it intentionally. They've not done it. They're doing it intentionally to destroy Western civilization, because the West is a threat. They're concerned that Christians or white people may do the Holocaust again to them, and therefore they were destroying the nation.
How is feminism purported by Zionism?
So if you look at a feminism in terms of like the first wave, second wave concept, it was something that was promoted and perpetuated by Israelis, as well as the right to vote for in Jewish people, Jewish Zionists. And in addition to that, if you look at again, what's the best way you perpetuate feminism? It's through three ways. Through the media. If you look at movies, what do you see? You see a woman who is dominant,
And
a
the weak
man who's
man.
basically an idiot, especially a white man. He's like an idiot, a goofball, a joker. And so you basically replicate that. You basically take women out of the household. So basically, what they did was financially, because they control the banking system, they made sure that people can't afford houses, they can't afford living conditions without both the man and the woman working. And so when the woman is working, she's out of the household, she's not having children. Furthermore, they did it through the government, as I said, through government policies where they were promoting women, they were giving them the right to vote, they were giving them ideas, all of these positions. That's through the government, through the media. I've explained it, through Hollywood. I've explained it, and through the educational system. So the education system is very much geared towards women. If you look at it, the vast majority of subjects now, whether in the US curriculum or the UK curriculum, is very much arty-farty subjects. And what I mean by that is non-science based subjects. So like the actual science-based subjects, such as maths, physics, there's only a few subjects. And so men dominate on those subjects. But if you look at a lot of the female-led subjects, there's a huge number of them. And it's arty-farty. It's like a coursework written, or it's written submissions. Women tend to do better on them because it's elongated information as opposed to precise, logical, mathematics science. And if you look at the dates when the examinations are done at the age of 16 or the age of 18. Women biologically develop faster than men. And so what happens is a woman is a lot more mature at the age of 16 compared to a man. And so what that means is when exams are taken, a woman has developed a lot more at that specific period of time, and therefore the exams are geared for her to do a lot more better. When it comes to men, on the other hand, their development occurs a bit later. And so if you look at it, they don't do as well in the age 16 exams, and they do better in university.
Oh my goodness, dude, you're blowing my mind here. I didn't even know that's true. So women develop faster, you're saying?
Yeah.
Jeez. So this entire thing from the top down. I mean, I always knew that the education system was a scam, but I did not know how far of a scam it was. Do you think the education system isn't John D. Rockefeller Jewish? I'm pretty sure he's the one that kind of created this. Wow. So he created the school system. And he's quoted
And not
saying
only that as well, like such is the level of perpetuation of feminism. I always give this example, and I think it's a good one. So in Islam, we have this concept, right, that there's two female witnesses to one male witness. And when I was young, your age, I was like, oh, bro, like, oh, what about the women? It's a bit tight, 2-1. I don't know. What about women? Come on, it should be 1-1. And then I grew up and I studied and I learned and I educated myself. And I realized that actually it makes so much logical sense. You look at studies in the 1970s when it was allowed. So in education system in the 70s, there were studies showed that women's recall is much worse than a man's recall after a traumatic event. And so therefore it makes sense that female witnesses are, you need two female witnesses to one male witness. And so logically it makes sense. And never mind from a like biological perspective as well. And compare that to sorry. So so that's an idea, but something like that, a research paper would never be allowed under modern situation because of modern control of feminism of the universities and the educational system.
Do you think that Islam is a solution to this entire thing?
What do you mean?
Like getting rid of the feminism, all these ideologies, everything that Israel and Zionism is pushing. Do you think that Islam, if everybody were to follow Islam, do you think it would take away a lot of the problems that we're facing?
I do believe that it would take away some of the a lot of the problems, for sure. Basically, believing in God and believing in religion does it, right? So that's very important in terms of believing in God, believing in religion, believing in religious ideals. They very much do it. In terms of Islam specifically, of course, I do believe that Islam is the true religion. Obviously, that's why I'm a Muslim. I do believe that basically it's the most logical religion. It's the religion that makes the most sense. It's the religion that is logically consistent and spiritually consistent. And so, yeah, specifically, if you're asking about Islam, of course it does, because Islam basically believes in the family structure. It believes in these ideals that are very important. And so, yeah, of course, you need to go back to religion to ensure that feminism doesn't take over.
I see one comment here. It's talking about you did a debate with Sheikh Uthman about numerology, and this comment here is saying that you lost. Give like a breakdown of that because I didn't see that, but that's kind of interesting. So you debated Sheikh Uthman on numerology. How'd
Yeah,
that
this
go?
guy's spam in the comments. So basically, what happened was I went on Sneako's stream. He invited me, so I was on his stream, and obviously we're chilling. And then next thing you know, this guy called Sheikh Uthman comes on, and he's like talking about Gary, Gary the numbers guy. He's a good friend of mine. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna, they were talking about debating him. And then they asked me, oh, what I'm trying to paraphrase, I can't remember exactly what happened, but something along the line. They asked me, like, how did it go? Sneeko said, oh, Sulaiman thinks that Gary won, which I do. I do think Gary won because his Uthman's point was not logical because he gave, and just from a logical perspective, and Islam is the most logical religion, although some Muslims are not. They're a bit low IQ, like that guy on there. But coming back to the point, so what he did was with Gary, he gave a fake date of birth, right? And then Gary gave a reading based on that fake date of birth. And then he was like, haha, I gave a fake date of birth. But that doesn't disprove numerology because and from an experimental perspective or from a logical perspective, that's a misnomer because all he proved is that Gary's given, because from Gary's perspective, he's given his numerology based on that date of birth. That numerology based on that date of birth, according to Gary, is right. So he's not disproved it. So it's illogical. The way you would disprove Gary's numerology would be basically you get Gary to give a reading on X number of people blind, and you would then get someone beforehand at the same time to get people to give whatever happened. So for example, I don't know, you'd get 30 people, you'd ask them what happened in your lifetime, what were your worst years, how did your life go, are you rich, are you poor, how's your relationship situation, whatever it may be. And then you'd basically ask Gary to give a reading on those people, and then he'd give a reading on this people, and then you would compare and you'd say, okay, that is now consistent with the experiment. So that's how you would basically do it. His way was illogical. It made no sense. I said, look, your Gary won, and also you lied. Like, I think lying's not allowed in Islam personally. It's impermissible, major sin in Islam. So he obviously was like, oh, do you believe in numerology or whatever it may be? And I do believe that numerology isn't haram and it doesn't go against the ideas of Islam. So I explained it to him, and then he made up stuff. He was like, oh, oh, Hanafis hold that position. And I asked him which Hanafi, and he said Imam Tahawi. And Imam Tahawi is a Hanafi, according to some he's not. But it was actually the commentary of his book. And the commentary of his book is not done by a Hanafi, it's done by a Salafi. And in addition to that, he basically said Shafa, the book of Shafa, Ibn Sina, was a medicine book when it was a book of philosophy. So he kind of made up a lot of stuff. Obviously, I don't think I lost him. I destroyed him in a bit on that, as well as his belief on anthropomorphism. And then obviously a lot of his fanboys got upset and started crying. So that's literally what happened. So that's basically the crux of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know why his fanboys are crying because he got smashed, and then he's been asked on spaces before. Sneeko asked him to come on another time, he wasn't willing to. I don't like debating Muslims or Christians because I think there's the biggest issue with Zionists, and that was my psychology with Uthman, and that's my psychology with Christians. I don't think it's good. I think we need to focus on Zionism, but obviously a lot of these guys, the whole goddamn show is just debating irrelevant issues.
So you said you don't think that numerology is haram, and you're a Muslim. So where do you think numerology kind of ties into Islam? Do you think it does tie into Islam, or do you think it's separate, or like kind of what's your view on numerology in Islam?
Okay, so there's two aspects to it, right? So the first is whether it's haram or not, right? So, or shirk, as people say, which is disbelief that you give a partner to God, or whether it's kufr. So the question becomes, what aspect of numerology is kufr or shirk? If you believe that numerology separate from God is something that is separate from God, that is without a doubt disbelief. If you believe that numerology controls the universe separate from God, that is disbelief. If you believe that God created numerology as a mechanism, just like God created this mug for me to put water in, to drink, to nourish me, And so, if you believe that, then how is that disbelief? That's literally saying God created a mechanism and a structure in the universe because there's only one God and only He has the ability to create a mechanism in the universe in such a manner that is able to basically be conducive and logical. If you believe that, then how is that haram? That's not haram and that's not kufr. If you on there's other aspect that they say that it predicts the future. That's the second aspect that the people think that it may be haram. Again, if you believe that numerology predicts the future separate from God, then that is haram. But if you believe that numerology, based on certain whatever the numbers are, give a kind of idea of a person's inclination, then how is that haram? It's just like, for example, now I'll get someone from Africa, right? And I don't believe people from Africa are low IQ because they're African, right? But I believe that people in Africa, based on their social condition, obviously have lower IQ than people in the West. So if I was to pick someone from Africa and I was to say that he's born in Africa, his genetics are from Africa, and therefore I can make certain predictions. One of them is the IQ might be a bit lower. The second thing is genetically, they might be physically superior to me, right? They'll probably be able to have a better genetics, better muscle fiber optics. Muscle fiber, sorry. They'll be able to be better in terms of running. If you're from Kenya, you'll be able to run long distances better. If you're from the United States and you're African, you'll be able to be better in athletics. I'll be able to make those predictions based on his genetic makeup. That, all right, I'll pick up someone from Pakistan and India, where I'm from, and I'll be like, I'm making a prediction that this guy's not going to be a professional footballer. Right?
Yeah.
That's literally based on genetics. And I'm likely going to be right, although there may be one that, actually, there isn't one in the UK. But for example, there's Hamza Chaudhry, but then he's mixed race. But the point being, so that's not predicting the future. That's using information that you have based on logical information, based on genetics, which is what God created, based on social structure, which is what God created, based on the environment, which is what God created. And then you're making a prediction based on that. That is not kufr. That is not haram. And so the whole reasoning for why it's haram makes no sense whatsoever. But
yeah. People will be like, oh, you're worshipping numbers. No, we're not worshipping numbers. We're looking at numbers because I believe that numerology is the language of God. Like, I think that God kind of communicates to us through numerology. He can't speak to us because we're kind of like dogs to God. Like, he can't really like make sense to us, but he uses numbers kind of as his language. That's what I believe. Somebody here says numerology is not specifically haram, but we should abstain from it. Why?
so let me just answer what you're saying, right? So I don't believe God has any language, right? Because I believe God is beyond time and space. And I always give this example, right? So imagine Excel and Word, right? Excel and Word. Someone created Excel and Word, right? And Excel and Word is built on Excel and Word is built on bytes and megabytes. Now, if someone lived in the universe of Excel and Word, they'd be Excel and bytes, and they'd be like, I wonder, my creator, how many Excels and how many bytes? Oh, sorry, how many bytes and megabytes is he? But human is not bytes and megabytes, right?
Right.
And so it's because the human mind is unable to even comprehend the existence of God. God is beyond time and space. This is my position. Now, in terms of numerology, put that aside, but I do believe that the Quran is a linguistic miracle, but also a numerical miracle. And so just like the Quran, from a linguistic perspective, no one was able to match it. If you look at the numerical miracles that are in the Quran, it's unbelievable. The Quran is a vast book, and yet angels and demons are mentioned, angels and jinns are mentioned the same number of times. Night and day is mentioned the same number of times. All of these things are balance within the Quran, light and darkness, right and wrong. And so I do think the Quran is a numerological miracle, right? Now, a miracle based on numbers, as well as linguistics. Now, in terms of numerology itself, obviously it's not discussed in the Quran. There's no doubt about this. I will always be honest. But in terms of the practice of numerology, there is certain Muslims in the past who were experts on numerology, Islamic numerology.
Really?
Yes, Islamic numerology is found in the Islamic tradition, whether it's from rationalists such as Avicenna and various others, or spiritualists such as the Sufis, who basically also believed in some forms of numerology in terms of, like, for example, each person has the name of God connected to them. And based on numerology, you can work out the name of God that is connected to you, in the sense, not physically, because that would be kufr, but if you were to read that, it would spiritually make you stronger. So again, this was something that was found in the Muslim tradition from the spiritual aspect of the Muslim tradition.
Somebody here has a $5 super chat. Thank you. Says, read this to Sulaiman. Sulaiman, didn't God also create black magic, but we still can't do it? What do you have to say to that?
True. The true. You can't do black magic, but what's the reason for you can't do black magic? Because black magic is evil. Black magic is there to harm people. Black magic is there to spiritually harm people and is there to hurt people. So when I say numerology, I don't mean you can do numerology in terms of putting numbers on a amulet or wherever it may be. That's not my position. But my position is that one could use numerology based on the way God created you to be able to deduce what happened. And look, this is just a creation of God. It's like saying that you believe that water nourishes you. Water does nourish you, but only because God gave it the power to nourish you. Either, and again, there's two different theological opinions on this. Some people believe that God innately put the power in the water. So this is the Salafi position, the Hanbali position, as well as the Maturidi position, that God put in the water the power to nourish. So what it means is when you drink water, the ability to nourish you is in the water, but God put it in there, right? But it exists within the water. Obviously, the Ashari position is that actually the water does not contain the power within the water, but what happens is you drink the water and then God basically nourishes you. So, but the vast majority of Muslims hold the first position. And so if you believe that God creates the universe in such a manner that within the fabric of the universe, it has the ability to do certain things, water nourishes, fire burns, and whatever it may be, and it's innately within that, because that's the way God created you, then there is only one God and he can create how he wants. The problem is you do not love God. You do not respect God because you think God is deficient to be unable to create such a thing, but God is great.
How accurate do you think that numerology is? Because I believe that you are a 33 life path. I'm also I'm a 33-6, so not peer. How accurate is a 33 life path to your personal life? Like, do you relate with
We're the best. 33? This is why they're crying, because we are the best. What's your date of birth?
October 14th, 2007.
Oh, nice. So, look, I do think that, obviously, I don't think it's 100% accurate. There's always, and this is the point. I think Gary doesn't believe it's 100% accurate, and that's what again demonstrates that why it's not something that is based on certainty, but it's based on a predictive model, right? Based on prediction, based on what you I gave you the example of Africa, I gave you the example of Pakistan. But coming back to the point, in terms of numerology, yeah, I do think that, like, a lot of the people I met who are 33, right, such as yourself, or they're just like dominating, especially if they're known. Obviously, most people flop, right? But like, there's you, there's Gary, there's Sean Kelly. There's so many 33s. A couple of good friends of mine are like flipping 33 dominating in crypto. So like pure domination when it comes to that. Generally speaking, it works. But then there is obviously people that it doesn't work in. I'll give you an example. Who was it? My kids like, oh, Nico. Have you heard of Nico? And then Nico is like, sorry?
I thought you said Sneeko.
No, Nico. He's like a YouTuber. Kids like him, right? Nico Omalanka or something like that, right? And he basically is a YouTuber, and he's really good. Like, in the sense of he makes interesting, he's good bands. And yeah, his numerology, I think, is something like he's like a 7 and I can't remember what the other number is, maybe 4 or something. And I was like, wait a second, this doesn't seem to be someone who would be good at that. So I don't think it's 100% thing, although I need to ask Gary what's his maybe his explanation for that.
Yeah, because sometimes numerology is off. Like, I have a friend that's a 7, but like he's totally a 5. Like, if you were to guess, you'd say he's a 5. He's always like, well, I'm not gonna go into it, but 5 characteristics, So usually numerology is very accurate when I do it on my friends. Not that I'm just going around doing it on my friends, but my one friend, it's like very not accurate. So I think it does miss every now and then. But I relate to 33. So I think that's accurate in my case.
Salua, God, that doesn't make sense. God goes by the Gregorian calendar. Okay, it's a good question. So first of all, it's not God going by it, right? So this is a controversial opinion of mine. Your chat's gonna start crying again, especially this Fardeen guy might have a heart attack. It's Ramadan,
Mental breakdown.
So just drink some water and just relax a bit. Sorry, I forgot what point I was gonna make. What was the question you asked? Oh yeah, about the Gregorian calendar.
Yeah, right here.
So what is the world? So what is the world? So for me, I believe the world is fake. This world isn't real, right? This world is an illusion, as per what is said in our narration, right? The world is an illusion. So what does that mean? I don't think that the physicality of the world is real. I actually believe in idealism. I believe the reality is I don't know what that point is, but anyway, the reality is that the reality is the mind. The mentation of the mind is real. So the only thing in my view is real is the mind, and everything else is a projection of the mind. So if you believe that the mind is what's real, and then what it projects is reality based on everyone's mind coming together to be able to do that, depending on however the mechanism to do that is, and obviously I do have a certain philosophical framework for that, then what it means is whatever the mind maintains becomes a reality. So if the Gregorian calendar is the calendar that dictates whatever the numbers are, then that will dictate what the reality of the situation is. If we switch to the non-Gregorian calendar, if we switch to the, for example, Islamic calendar, or we switch to the Chinese calendar, the Taiwanese calendar, whatever it may be, then that would be something that would be projected into the universe based on the mind, and then the numerology would be based on that. Even the same point about the 10 base system, you'd be like, why is it based on 10 base? Why can't it be based on 5 base? Why can't it be based on 7? Because that is the way the numbers were put together, and then base 10 became the way that we applied things, and then that became the projection of the mind. So the physical existence is not real, only the mind is real. And the reason I came up with that conclusion is because I long studied and explored the mind-body problem, and the mind-body problem, I believe, cannot be solved in terms of its connection, and that's why I believe in this idea of idealism.
What do you think about like Chinese astrology? Because that's like another thing that Gary goes into. This is technically my enemy year right now. I'm not sure what sign you are, but I'm a pig. So this is my enemy year right now. So I'm supposed to lay low. How much do you buy into that stuff?
You're trying to get me cancelled, bro. Yeah, I do think all these things have factors and impacts for sure. Right, what's this guy saying? Which emphasizes the no soul? Was it?
What one are you reading?
Okay, I'm reading this for Dean guy, the Sheikh Uthman fan. So, first of all, I agree with that position because it's the Quran, and the Quran is the word of God, and it can never be wrong. So, what the point there is, and by the way, that goes with my position because I believe in free will. You guys don't believe in free will. You guys believe in determination. So, this Quran verse goes against you guys because you believe in determination. You study your own books and know your own religion and your own sex beliefs. But anyway, coming back to the point. So, I do believe in free will. That is one of the best Quranic verses which demonstrate free will. And I do believe humans have free will because you have the decision, the ability to choose right or wrong. So there's no thing that is determined, right? So you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow for a fact. You don't know what's going to happen. And if Gary said, listen, based on numerology, I know that this is going to happen as a matter of certainty, I would not believe in that numerology because I don't believe that you can know. But like I explained to you, and you just need to open your mind to try and understand. This is the problem with, people who are zealot sectarians who believe in their own groups' views. Their minds are closed. So, in the books of theology, we have the very first chapter in our books of theology, which say that, doing taqleed is impermissible. It's haram and you're not a believer. And what that means is that you give your belief to somebody else. You don't think logically about your own belief system and come to your own realization of truth and falsehood. You rely on somebody else. So anyway, that's what this guy's doing. And therefore, according to your own belief, there's highly problematic issues with your view.
We have a $2 super chat here. Boston Shamrock, I appreciate it. Says left you a comment on your Zerka debate. Appreciate it. Have you spoken to Zerka or anything like that?
I don't believe so. I mean, I was on a Twitter space with Zerka, but I don't think it was a debate. We disagreed a little bit, but mainly agree on most issues. Like Zerka's a good guy.
Yeah, W Zerka. So you didn't like answer too much when I asked you if you believe in like enemy signs or like Chinese astrology. Like, do you believe in enemy year and all that stuff, or is that something that like you don't want to touch on too much?
No, it's fine. Yeah. Like I said, I do believe that everything has an impact. So of course, yeah, I do think that enemy signs have an impact for sure. They have some impact on you. I do believe that there is some form of impact on that. Like I said to you, I believe that has some form of impact. I believe that numerology has a form of impact. I explained to you Islamic numerology, Sufi numerology, that has an impact. I believe in other aspects of the sciences that many people don't know about, such as face reading. I believe that has an impact. Physiognomy has an impact. I think all of these things have an impact on you.
100%. Sorry, this one guy's just going off the comments. Numerology is haram according to Quran Surah Luqman 34.
I've answered that. He's just spamming it. I've answered that.
So he's just spamming.
So which emphasize that no soul, and I explained to you, no is as a certainty, and you don't know as a certainty. This is just predictive based on your environment.
Yeah,
and
I don't think Gary ever claimed to know the future. Like, he's not a fortune teller. He's just saying, okay, this is your birthday, so your characteristics
this guy's annoying me.
like
Okay,
this.
listen, this guy's annoying me too much now, right? So listen, why does he keep spamming? Is he retarded or something? So anyway, but listen, you need to worry about your own belief system, because you literally believe in like an anthropomorphized God. You believe in a physical God, which is like bouncing around, and his head, some parts he's basically like a disabled God. So if anything, your position is a position of disbelief, because it goes against Surah Ikhlas, which is about that God is not like anything. God is beyond time and space, but God does not have children. So just sort your own belief system out. And like I said, it's not no, because if anyone claims that numerology is based on certainty, then of course that is problematic, right? But that's not what there is. Like I gave you the example of, but I think you're too slow. Like this is what I mean. These people are too low IQ. I gave the example of Africa. I gave the example of Pakistan. I gave the examples that doesn't mean you're predicting the future, because there could be someone who comes out of Africa who, I mean, there are people who come out from Africa and then are not physically strong. And there could be someone who comes out from Pakistan and may become a professional footballer. These things could happen, but I'm just talking about from a woman perspective. There may be a woman who becomes who's good enough to play in men's sports. Highly unlikely. If I had to predict, I think it's not going to happen. I'm not predicting the future, but based on pattern, right?
Pattern recognition, yeah. This is kind of like what Zerka says when he says that religious people are oftentimes like the least spiritual people. Like they almost put themselves in like a box, in a sense, a box of thinking.
They're the least spiritual, they're the most low IQ, and they're the most, I would say, going against the word of God, because God is actually telling you to use your brain and your rational and logical thought. The reason I believe in Islam, and I believe Islam is the true religion, is because it's the most logical, the most rational religion, the most spiritual religion. You basically have logic when it comes to Islam. You have rationality when it comes to Islam. You have things that make sense when it comes to Islam. You have a legal system that logically makes sense when it comes to Islam. And then you have a theology when it comes to Islam. God, not this guy's, because this guy believes God's a dude, but that basically that you believe that God is not like any of the creation. God is beyond time and space. God is not limited. God doesn't sit in some place or location. So you don't believe that. And then further, also, you also have the spiritual component of Islam, which is that Islam is spiritually, gives you spirituality. It gives you the ability to meditate. It gives you all aspects. So yeah, Islam, this is the reason why I'm a Muslim.
Yes, sir, brother. All right, man. I'm all out of questions. We're about around the hour mark. This has been an amazing podcast. I really appreciate it. Taking your time to do this. I have a lot of respect for you as an individual. I think you have a great message, and thank you for your time here, brother.
Let me just answer that one last question, and then I'll shift. Yeah. So what is the difference between Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanbali? Yeah, so those are the 4 legal schools within Islam. So you have the Hanafi school, the Shafi school, the Maliki school, and the Hanbali school. You notice there's no Salafi school on there because it's an innovation. But anyway, coming back to it, it's the Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanbali school. Now, you might have heard of this concept in Western civilization about Sharia law. Sharia law is this idea that is based on this. So there's not one Sharia law. You have the Hanafi school, which there's a legal system based on that, the Shafi school, the Maliki school, and the Hanbali school. And what Sharia law is just a legal system where it tells you how to worship, but also tells you how to basically construct society. And actually, if you look at the Sharia law legal system, it's very much similar to the Christian legal system and the Jewish legal system because it's based on belief in God. Captain Blip, yeah, you're right. Okay, cool. Let's wrap it up.
Okay. God bless, man. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Sulaiman Ahmed. Everybody go check him out on his socials. He's on X, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. So Sulaiman Ahmed, great guy, fellow 33 life path. So I don't know. I agree with his take on numerology. I agree with pretty much all of his takes. I'm not going to lie. Pretty base guy. So if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, like, share, all that good stuff. We're trying to hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. So God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next